also sing. And we will also not sing Chayara Maha, but because it's disappearance day, we sing Gyanila Prema Dana, and you can find the lyrics in this book 42. I will just also read the translation of the song so we know what we are singing. And who wrote this song? Narottam Das Thakur himself. So Narottam Das Thakur was a very great poet, where he could put his feelings into the songs. It was like his talent. And so this song, it's the tradition of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas to sing this song when a Vaishnav departs or when we celebrate the departure day of a Vaishnav. So he's saying here in this song, he who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivas Acharya gone? So he's basically speaking about different Vaishnavas and even the Lord himself. Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Je anilo prema dhana karuna prachu Je anilo prema dhana karuna prachu Sanata Sarago nata patita pa kahamora patajuga Kaha Kavira Eka Kale Kota Gela Gora Natara Pashane Kotibo Mata Anale Pashibo Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gele Pabo Goranga Gunera Nidhi Kota Gele Pabo Se Saba Sangira Sange Je koilo bila Se sanga na paya kande narotama da Anilo prema dhana karuna pracho Anilo prema dhana Anilo prema dhana karuna pracho Hena Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Dakho Hena Prabhu Kota Gela Acharya Dakho Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Vaishnav Thakur, Jaya Vaishnav Thakur. Jaya Jaya Prabhu Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Narottam Das Thakur ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuru Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatang Vitang Tvang Sajivam Sadvaitang Savadutang Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitangscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Pevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine, Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Jai. So we're gonna glorify, or we try to glorify Srila Narottam Das Thakur today, and there is a lot to say, many things which we can glorify him, but still, actually it's... I was reading this book now when I was in Locarno. I already read it once and now the second time, and one thing I realized, why do we do that? Why do we glorify the Vaishnavas? Because it connects us with them, and somehow by connecting with them we associate with them, and we just, by their causeless mercy, we actually, so many things get revealed within ourselves. It's like reading Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, reading about the pure devotees, very purifying. So I just wanted to see who is Narottam Das Thakur, in a sentence. I want to see how much, what's your understanding who Narottam Das Thakur is. The first thing that comes to your mind. Nityasiddha Mahabhagavat means eternally perfected soul. He's a disciple of Lokanath. Please? He received the love of God from Lord Chaitanya. Wow. We will hear about this. What else?
Personification of eagerness for Krishna praying from very young age.
Mm.
He's one of the second generation, original second generation.
He's the original second generation of the Hare Krishna movement. Yes. Actually, if of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Hare Krishna movement, if you look up the parampara in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada gives the parampara with all the names, and I don't know which number, but he comes after, there's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then Rupa Sanatan, then Kaviraj, Krishnadas Kaviraj Raghunath Das, and then Narottam comes. So I will make a statement, and actually that's where I want to go through this class, that Srila Narottam Das Thakur is an embodiment of love. And he showed it by his life, but especially by how he passed away. So, Narottam, what means Narottam? Nara Uttama means the best of the human beings, the best of the... Nara means humans, but can also mean maybe a person, I'm not sure. So, he got this name because he was really a person with many qualities. But actually, before we go into how he got his name, we should go a little bit back, because his story told in this book, and also what we hear from other sources, is it actually starts while Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was still here on this planet. So anyone remembers from when to when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present? That's my personal thing. Growing up in the West, we have a very linear understanding of history. Actually, in India, it's often not the case, and this is something which frustrates me sometimes, because I always want to put it into time and place. You know, where did it happen and when? But it's sometimes difficult because the Vedic understanding, consciousness, doesn't put so much emphasis on that. But still, I made a lot of research, and of course Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birth date and date of departure we know. 1486. He lived for 48 years, so he departed 1534. Some say 33, it's not quite clear. So that's when he departed. And while he was still in Navadvip, and he started the Sankirtan movement, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to go out with his associates, like Nityananda Prabhu and Gadadhar, Srivas. He would go on Sankirtan. And they would go on huge tours, you know. They would preach, travel. And actually the question came up at one point, and I just want to point one thing out in the beginning. Many of the details I don't remember clearly, but I have this book, and whoever wants to read it, I'm happy to give it, whoever is first in line. So I will just try to generalize the things so that I don't give wrong information. But there was a discussion between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu, and the concern came up that how will your movement continue when you are gone? Soon you will be gone. You will go back to the spiritual world, and all your associates will go back as well. Who will continue? So that was a concern that came up. The Sankirtan movement had to continue. And one time they were doing Sankirtan, actually they were close to the Padma river, that's a river in Bengal, and they were doing Sankirtan, and all of a sudden Lord Chaitanya was always in ecstasy, but he really got into ecstasy, and he started to cry out, Narottam, 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 and he fell unconscious. And the devotees were and he was really sweating and crying and then unconscious, so they were concerned because, yeah, he shows ecstatic symptoms, but that was really intense, so they got concerned and they, chanted softly in his ear, and he woke up after some time. So they asked him, who is this Narottam? We never heard of a person called Narottam. So then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he revealed, Narottam is my very dear devotee. He has not yet appeared, but he will come in the future, and he will get my mercy. I will give him my full mercy. And then at some point, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he went to the river Padma, and he called Padma Devi. That's the goddess of the river Padma. And he told her, dear Padma, soon my dear devotee Narottam will appear in this world, and I want to give him my gift of love. And I want you to conceal it, keep it until he comes. So please give a pot. She took a pot and he put the love in the pot. He put the love in the pot, and so she took it. And so Padma was asking Lord Chaitanya, how do I know who is Narottam? How do I know whom to give it to? And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't worry, you will notice him immediately, because when he will come and bathe in your waters, due to his ecstasy, the water will raise, the water level will come up. So then you will know it's Narottam. Then you go to him and give it. So that's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself predicted Narottam's appearance. Who else was predicted in the, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Prabhupada. Nope. So it's quite amazing how there's not many instances where the God himself predicts somebody else to come, but no, Narottam is one of them. So then the story of Narottam's appearance begins in a town called Keturi in Bengal, and it's still, Keturi is there, and there is actually all the places of Narottam, and there lived a king called Krishnanandan, and he had his wife called Narayani. And like often, a king, he needs a son, but somehow or other, he wasn't fortunate enough to receive a son. And actually he was a king just so that because when I heard a king, it's like 500 years ago, he was a so-called Kayashta. And the Kayashta, I made some research, was a person who was taking administrative care of the Nawab, of some area of the Nawab. The Nawab was the Muslim king, and then they would have some, like Rupa Goswami, Sanatan, they would also help in the Muslim government. So Narottam Das Thakur, his father was a Kayashta, and he had a small kingdom. And he was condemned by some, that he's basically a Shudra, working for a Muslim. But actually he had the same intention like Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami. He wanted to protect the Vaishnavas in this area. So they were praying to the Lord. He was a Vaishnav, and they were praying for a son. And one time a Brahmana came, and they were revealing their minds that, they had this desire to receive a son. And then at one point Narayani, she had a dream in which she dreamt that I'm not sure, but somehow Narottam went into Krishnanandan and then transferred to Narayani. Like in Krishna Lila, we hear something similar. That's how the personalities from the spiritual world come down. But they were not sure if that was just some hallucination or, is there any substance behind. So they asked the Brahmin, and he told them yes. He made a horoscope, and he said, yes, actually, you will receive a son, and this son will not be an ordinary son, but he will be the best of human beings. He's Narottam. So that's how he got the name. So Narottam appeared, and you have to if you look it up on the map, where is Keturi? Keturi is maybe 100 kilometers north of Navadvip, a little bit northeast. And what's described is many devotees would travel through Keturi to go to Puri when they are on pilgrimage. And Keturi, because Krishnanandan Prabhu was a Vaishnav, and he was a king, he had facilities, he would try to serve those Vaishnavas who were on the way to Puri, because it was a long journey. You can imagine walking from Navadvip to Puri is a huge way, but then they come from north down. And he would, give them accommodation, prasad. And what would the Vaishnavas do? They would often preach. And so when Narottam grew up, he grew up listening to Vaishnavas preaching about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and so on. And so we heard that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he left in 1533, 34. Narottam, I also tried to figure it out by using my astrology program. There is 2 descriptions when he appeared. The year is not given, but there is some information on the internet, and of course the month and the day is given. But it looks like he appeared in the year 1550, so 16, 17 years after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the Vaishnavas who came by, it was, some of them met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and some of them heard about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and they would glorify Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And when Narottam heard about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he fell in love. He became so eager to meet this personality, so he asked, where can I meet him? And he was a small boy. And then the Brahmin who spoke first about him, he started to cry. He told him, actually, it breaks my heart to tell you, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world. So Narottam was, he was devastated. I have to quickly jump back, because when he took birth, the astrologer told about the wonderful qualities of Narottam, but what he also told the father and mother, he said, keep your son away from the river. The river is dangerous for him. We heard before what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had as a plan. So Krishnanandan, being so grateful that finally he got a son, he made a vow. He said, I will not risk it, and I will not let my son go to the river at all. So he would actually have Narottam only stay in the palace, and he couldn't really go out, and he could only go out when he was supervised. And that went on for years. And he would bring the teachers to his house, everything what he needed. Similar to actually the story of Buddha, but in a little different way. Raghunathas also, yeah. And so he was taught privately at home, and everybody was just, amazed how brilliant this personality was. He learned everything in no-go. And what happened, he started to just develop interest in Krishna Katha. He just wanted to hear about Krishna and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so he lived like that, and there is one incident described here, how one person once came and spoke about the Raghunathas Goswami's renunciation and how he left home. So then he was a small boy, he went to the father, he said, Father, why don't we leave our home and renounce everything? And then his father was telling, oh, you're a small boy, it's cute, but we have our duty here to perform, and we are not sadhus. Being a Vaishnava, but not, there's also differences in we know with Raghunathas Goswami, he also had parents who were Vaishnavas, but Raghunathas Goswami had a different eagerness to serve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And it was especially Narottam Das Thakur, he developed the desire to preach. He understood that it's about Sankirtan, preaching, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu distributing love, and he wanted to take actively part and not just stay at home, be king, and do some pious activities on the side. That didn't resonate with his heart. So I'm just jumping ahead a bit. At one point, he became so eager, to deepen his Krishna consciousness and to actually meet exalted Vaishnavas. And then he first had a dream, and I don't remember exactly, I think it was Nityananda Prabhu appeared, and who told him, you go to or maybe Gauranga himself, you go to the river, there is a gift there. And so in the middle of the night he woke up after having the dream, and he secretly went through the window out, went to the river, and he paid his obeisances, and he went in to take snan. And yeah, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu predicted happened. He became ecstatic, he was ecstatic, but then Padma Devi appeared, and she told him, Narottam, you must be Narottam, because when you came in, the water level raised, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told me that I have to appear and give you this gift. And so she gave him that. Indra Dumna Maharaj says, it's sometimes difficult to understand how it actually works, you know, because it's a spiritual platform, but she gave it to him, and he accepted it. And he became ecstatic. And he became ecstatic, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in front of him, and he melted, and he fell unconscious.
How old was he?
Sorry?
Does it say how old he was?
No, unfortunately not. I've tried to make more research, but I couldn't find information. And then in the morning, when the father and mother got up, they didn't find him in the house. They got concerned, so immediately they organized the whole group. They ran out of the palace, and they were yelling, Narottam. And then Narottam woke up from his unconscious state, and they found him. But actually Narottam was not the same anymore. He was completely emotional, and not materially emotional, but spiritually emotional. And they thought he was haunted by a ghost. That's the state he was in. So they put him into bed, and he was just only lamenting, where has Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gone? Where has my Lord gone? He was just here, and now where has he gone? He has disappeared. And they didn't know what to do. And this went on for some time. And I tried to concise things a bit, because, as I said, Indra Dumna Maharaj, I listened to the first one, and he said, I tried to, but then he ended up giving 3 lectures. He wanted to give one, because it's so much nectar. So Narottam Das Thakur, at one point, he kind of calmed down, and he just thought, I have to play along. I'm stuck here, I have to play along. And then he continued with his life as a young boy. And then the Nawab, the Muslim king, heard about Narottam, because people started to talk about him. That here's this boy, he's completely extraordinary, and he had this mystic experience. And so the Nawab said, I want him to meet. So he brought a group of servants with a palanquin, and they said, we want to bring him to the Nawab. And actually, just before that, Narottam had a dream, and I think this time it was Nityananda Prabhu, and before it was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, saying, you should go to Vrindavan, because he wanted to go to Vrindavan. Knowing that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left, Nityananda Prabhu left, Swarup Damodar left, he heard Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami are still here, so he wanted to meet them. And so he said, you go to Vrindavan, but he didn't know how. And somehow he got the sign that it will be shown to him how he can go. So they brought him in the palanquin to the king, and then to the Nawab, and they had to rest in the night. And of course, immediately he got the inspiration in the heart, I have to go now, that's my chance. And he escaped, and you know what he did? He just started running to Vrindavan from Bengal. It's a huge distance, but he just ran. He didn't look back, he just ran. And at one point he collapsed. He became so tired, and he collapsed, and at one point he woke up, and he could hear people approaching. And who was it? The guards who had to bring him to the Nawab. They were actually looking for him. And he wanted to escape again, but he realized he cannot, it's too late. And that is really interesting than what Narottam did, because now he was stuck. So they told him, why did you escape? We are in trouble if we don't bring you to the king. He will punish us, so you should come. And Narottam just looked them into, what I got from this book, he was a very feelingly person. Like we hear his songs, he was very. He could express his feelings in a really good, nice way. So what he looked him in the eyes and he said, you know, like when a widow wants to follow her husband and jump into the fire, and everybody wants to hold her up because they think it's crazy, it's a crazy idea. Similarly, I decided to go to my Lord and enter the fire of Krishna consciousness. So you don't have, and like these people don't have the right to hold up this woman, you don't have the right to hold me up. And they were just, you know, what can we say more? And they realized this is actually a sadhu. And they turned around and left. And he peacefully walked to Vrindavan. Then he came to Mathura, and in Mathura he met a Brahmin, and the Brahmin, when he saw Narottam, he just had to go to him because he felt, wow, what kind of personality is this? He seems to be so ecstatic and effulgent. And so they started to speak, and they were relishing Krishna Katha. And then Narottam asked him, so how is Rupa and Sanatan doing? And the Brahmin just collapsed and started to cry. And he said, I'm so sorry to tell you, but they just left. And Narottam, he was so, again, you know, after this news of Lord Chaitanya, and for years he was longing to go. Now he, basically for the reason why he came, it was gone, and he was just so sad. But then the Brahmin told him, but there is other Vaishnavas. Jiva Goswami is still there, Lokanath Goswami, Raghunath Das Goswami, and Krishnadas Kaviraj, so many Vaishnavas. So you go. So he went to Vrindavan. And it's described that the Brahmin, he couldn't let go of him, so he walked with him for a very long time. And at one point he realized I have to let him go. Because Narottam was such an embodiment of love that he was like a magnet. But then he went back. So he came to Vrindavan, and in Vrindavan he first went to the Radha Govinda Mandir, is described. That's the temple established by Rupa Goswami, which was then being taken care of Jiva Goswami. And when he came, that's interesting, wherever he came, the Vaishnavas asked, who are you? And he said, I'm Narottam. And he said, Narottam, finally you come. We have heard so much about you. And they were all so happy because they were waiting for this moment that he can come. And so Jiva Goswami, he took him in. And Jiva Goswami, he was we hear Jiva Goswami, he was the greatest scholar of India has ever seen. Actually, even some contemporaries say that nowadays, that there has never been such a scholar in the land of India. So he was very scholarly, he would write books and he would teach. And so Jiva Goswami took him under his care. And Narottam, he knew that he had to take initiation. And somehow it was revealed to him that it was Lokanath Goswami. And so he asked Jiva, can you bring me to Lokanath? And he said, yes, of course. So they went. And he was living in a small hut, in a secluded place. And when Narottam saw him, he immediately knew, that's him. He's my master, he's my Lord. And he fell in love, you know. And actually Lokanath also fell in love. You know, it is described that when the Guru and the disciple, the Sat Guru and Sat Shishya meet, it's like the eternal relationship which comes back. But he just felt, oh, this is such a wonderful person, and he heard about him too now, and he was glorifying him, that you are so exalted, you got the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And So he got to know him, and then at some point Narottam revealed to Lokanath that I want to take initiation from you. Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Shri Shri Gaurnitai ki jai. Yashoda Damodar ki jai. So he said, I got this sign from Krishna that you are my guru and I want to take initiation from you. And Lokanath Goswami immediately said, no. I made a vow, I'm not going to accept any disciples in this life. And anyway, who am I? I'm just a fallen person and you are a prince. He was a prince. You are a prince. It is an offense if I consider myself the guru of you. So Narottam, and he was very strong. He didn't want to give initiation. So Narottam, he was devastated. And he asked Jiva Goswami what to do. And Jiva Goswami told him, you serve him and it will happen. So then Narottam, because Lokanath would not accept any service from anyone, he was so pure Vaishnava. I'm very happy to accept service from many people, but Lokanath Goswami's Vaishnava doesn't like to accept service. So he had a plan that he will go in the night and he would go to the place where Lokanath Goswami would pass stool and urine, and he would clean that place and make it ready for the next day so that Lokanath Goswami, would comfortably come. And like when we go to the toilet, it's also nice if it's clean, no? It's common sense. So he would take some Yamuna mud and put it there so that he could clean himself and like that. And this went on for some time, and then one night he was doing that, and all of a sudden somebody yelled at him, "Hey, who is there?" And he, of course, Narottam just was shocked in the middle of the night. He didn't expect that, and he turned around and Lokanath was there, and so he chastised him. So you are this person. I was wondering who is doing that. You are, and he was basically saying, you're destroying my spiritual life. You're serving me. I'm so fallen. How can you do this to me? So amazing. And so Narottam, of course, he was able to express his feelings, and he said, I need to take initiation from you. Krishna, he showed me you're my master, and how can you reject me, my life? I will, basically commit suicide. But Lokanath Goswami again said, no, I cannot, this is my vow. And then Lokanath Goswami had a dream. I also don't remember who came, but he had a dream that Narottam is your disciple and you accept him. So then they performed the yagya, and it's described Jiva Goswami was the pujari. And it's actually said, some say it was the first initiation in this kind in the Gaudiya Vaishnava. Like we do, before it was more kind of, give the beads and the mantra, but it was a real initiation like we know it, and many Vaishnavas came. So he got initiated, and then Lokanath Goswami told him, so my instruction to you is you go back to Jiva Goswami and you learn from him. And he would learn under Jiva Goswami with two other personalities, Srinivasacharya and Shyamananda Pandit. So these were three wonderful personalities who studied under Jiva Goswami, and Srinivasacharya was a little bit older, and Narottam and Shyamananda were approximately same age, but they were all kind of young, and they were so brilliant. Jiva Goswami is brilliant, but they were brilliant that at one point the Vaishnavas gave them some titles, and so Srinivas became Acharya, Srinivasacharya, Shyamananda became Pandit, and Narottam became Thakur. They gave them these titles. And then, just one time, oh my God, time is running, so I've speed up a bit. So one time, it was just before Kartik, Jiva Goswami called his three disciples and he said, Kartik is coming, now we are in Kartik months. This is the most auspicious month. We have to get all the blessings from the Vaishnavas. So let us organize a big feast and we will serve them prasadam. So they invited all the Vaishnavas, and then they served the prasadam. It was nicely organized. It's actually described, Srinivasacharya was a very good manager. We will hear a little bit about this, hopefully. And but then after the prasadam was over, Jiva Goswami stood up and he made an announcement. And he said, "Dear Vaishnavas, the main reason why we come together today is that the time has come for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings to spread. And we have to bring the teachings of the Goswamis to Bengal. And my 3 disciples, Srinivas, Narottam, Shyamananda, they will go. So please you bless them all." And all the Vaishnavas were Hari Bol, and they were showering blessings on them. But these 3 personalities were, of course, they had mixed feelings because they had their gurus there, they were in Vrindavan, and they didn't want to leave actually. But then at one point all of them understood that this is the order of Guru, and this is the supreme goal, to follow the instruction of Guru, and they decided, okay, we go. So it's described, they packed the bullock cart, they had a bullock cart, and Jiva Goswami loaded all the scriptures on it, and then they had a few guards, and then they went from Vrindavan to Bengal. And I just want to mention, to make a little bit advertisement for this book, at this point I just had to cry. It was so, the scene, how the Vaishnavas shower their love and how they feel separation. And Mataji, her Shitala Mataji, my humble pronouns to her, she's really done an amazing job by writing this book. So they went, and what happened on the way, they stopped in Bihar, and then they took a break, rested for the night, and in the middle of the night somebody woke up and they saw all the scriptures were gone. All the books were gone, and so they, of course they were, I really make it fast now, they were devastated, and they actually thought their life is ruined because the instruction of the Guru, they cannot fulfill it. At one point Srinivas said, there must be a reason behind this, because the Lord wouldn't have let us come so far, and now all of a sudden it doesn't make sense, there must be a reason. So he told Narottam, Shyamananda, you go, you preach, and I will stay and will make sure the books come back. So Narottam, he went to Keturi, back to his home. And that's the Vrindavan, and this is another part which is really, it melts your heart. Because his parents, they were still alive, but they were basically half dead, out of extreme separation from Narottam. And Narottam, he based himself in Keturi, and he became a preacher. And of course, initially the parents, they wanted to take him back into the palace, and Narottam, he was humble, he paid his obeisances to them, and he said, I will meet you every day, and I will be here, I'm your son, but I will not come back, I will stay outside. And I don't know what it is, it's maybe some hut he was living in together with Shyamananda, and he would start to preach, and like that. And then at one point he went to his parents and he said, I want to go on pilgrimage. So see how humble he was? He was a pure devotee, and he left actually all his, but he went to his parents to ask for permission, he can go on pilgrimage. And he said, I will only go this one time, and then I will come back and stay here my whole life. I will not do this anymore to you. So they gave him permission. And he went to Navadvip, and in Navadvip he had many, actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to him, and he went to the home of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Yoga Pit. And at Yoga Pit, he met devotees who were living with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And again, whenever he came and they asked him, who are you? He said, Narottam. They were so happy. They said, Narottam, we were waiting for years for this moment. And now that you are here, it's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has come back. And all our pain has dissipated. And it's described how he's in the home of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's just going into deep ecstatic trance. And then at one point he decides he has to move on. He went direction Puri, and on the way he stopped in Shantipur, and there he met Achyutananda, the son of Advaita Acharya, and same thing, he was relishing with the Vaishnavas. And then he came to, after a long journey, he came to Puri, and in Puri, I'm getting nervous because he was watching the time. He came to. If you have to go, you can go now. He came to Puri, and also many descriptions, but it's really, Narottam Das Thakur was like expansion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What he manifested was so similar to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he came to the Puri temple, and when he came in front of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, he was so ecstatic, and this was already uncontrollable. But then he looked back and he saw the Garuda Stamba. The Garuda Stamba is the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would stand every day and take darshan. And he went there, and he saw in the floor there is some holes because of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's tears. And he just, you can imagine, he went basically into the same state like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. And you can imagine all the pujaris and the devotees were like, who is this personality? It's like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came back. And he was spending, days with the Vaishnavas, and just, it was like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Everybody wanted to be with him and talk and take darshan. But at one point he had a vision, again, a dream, and somebody appeared to him and told him, you should go back and you will develop kirtan. That's your service. You write songs and you develop a new style of kirtan. So he went back, and on the way he also went to Ekachakra. He met Nityananda Prabhu there, who disguised himself as an old Brahmana, but then revealed that it's actually Nityananda Prabhu. And Nityananda Prabhu, as an old Brahmin, took him on pilgrimage in Ekachakra and told him about what Nityananda Prabhu did, even though it was himself. And then he went back to Keturi, and he settled down, he preached, and then, now I have 2 minutes, the idea came up, or he got the service of organizing the first Gaur Purnim festival. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu just left, now it must have been, if he appeared 1550, that was 16, 17 years, and now he must have been maybe, I don't know, it's not described, but it must have been 45 years or something, or actually a little more, because they say 50 years after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance, they celebrated the first Gaur Purnim. And Srinivasacharya was the manager of the festival, and Narottam and some other devotees, Ramachandra, who became the dearest associate of Narottam, they organized. So they invited all the Vaishnavas. And who was the head of the assembly? Chanava Mata, the wife of Nityananda Prabhu. She was still alive, and she was considered the boss. So they came, and they installed deities. And then Narottam, he started to, for the first time, perform kirtan. And the descriptions are really out of this world. They say Narottam, it was a huge assembly of Vaishnavas, and he would start to sing songs. And we know his Prema Bhakti Chandrika and Prarthana. He would just have, and it's described that actually when he wrote the songs, all the feelings he had from the pilgrimage, he would pour them out. All these deep mystical experiences. And he would start to sing, and the kirtan became so ecstatic that at one point Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Panchatattva appeared. and everybody could see. Everybody could see. And yeah, the scene is, of course, you cannot describe it. It's everybody had different ecstatic manifestations. And then when they disappeared, everybody basically collapsed. You know, Narottam fell unconscious, and many were just, it's described some, is it okay if I just take a few minutes more? Because so it's described some were just standing for minutes and looking, some were crying. Cannot describe. So yeah, that's how the first festival was taking place. And then after the festival, Narottam continued his preaching, and that's actually when his main preaching was happening. And he was converting many of the big scholars in Bengal. And it's really interesting, this I didn't know, that you remember the story of how there was one Pandit, Digvijay, who came to Vrindavan and went to Rupa Goswami and wanted to debate, and he said, you know, I'm not qualified, and he gave him the paper of you won, and Jiva Goswami then defeated him. This Digvijay took initiation from Narottam later on, and actually he told him at that point, don't worry, when he was humiliated, now you will take initiation from one devotee, Narottam, later on. And when he heard the name Narottam, he was the court pandit of the king in this area. When he heard Narottam, he knew now the time has come, I will take initiation. So Narottam, he converted many of the Brahmins, and this was, of course, giving huge impact in the society. The Brahmins were actually trying to stop him, say that he's a cheater, he's destroying Vedic culture, but eventually everybody saw he's superior than a Brahmin, he's a Vaishnava. And then the final pastimes, I just go off the chapter, the final pastimes is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to manifest Prema Bhakti and especially Vipralamba Bhav. And Narottam, he actually he was put in the same situation because in the end of his life, when he was old, all of his associates left. You know, his gurus and his Ramachandra was his dearest associate, and he went into a very deep state of separation. And he actually lived in a forest alone for many years. And then the disciples, they, you know, were worried about him. And to make a long story short, at one point Narottam told his, I think it's the same Brahmin disciple who I just told, he told him, I want to go to Padma or maybe some other river, and I want to take a bath. And they went there, all the devotees from Keturi, all the disciples, and then Narottam went inside the river and he sat down, and he told his one disciple and the other one, you come and you massage my body. And they started to massage his body, one on the left hand side, one on the right hand side, and he started to really, you know, go internal. And they, both of them felt, oh my God, what are we doing here? And they could feel, you know, what's happening. But somehow, and they looked into each, it's described so nicely, they looked into each other's eyes, and even though they knew what's going to happen, they couldn't stop. It's like they were forced to do it. And so they massaged his body, and what happened? His body started to melt. And what was it? It was milk. His body became milk. And they just continued to massage and until the whole body was disappeared, and it was just white milk flowing away. And it's said they collected some of the milk and it's kept somewhere, I don't know. So, embodiment of love, and I told Radha Govinda I would like to share this realization I had by the mercy of Narottam, that why milk? And I remembered my Guru Maharaj once said in a class that